Welcome back, Ramble Nation, to another episode of the Living Numbers Podcast, where you learn how to balance work and play through the inspirational stories of others. This week, we counted up with MJ, Mark Jackson, a virtual real estate salesman and an avid trainer for Spartan races. This guy is off the charts. He leaves us with these three takeaways. Number one, find a career that will help you determine your full value. That's basically we're talking about how much you're getting paid. Number two, be intentional about your life. This will lead to more results, which for him led to real estate and Spartan races, like I said earlier. This guy created a plan for himself, stuck to the plan, and had great people along the way to help him. Great story there. And number three, finding a hobby helps create balance in your personal and professional life. That looks like a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but no matter who you are, it's important to do it. Of course, we end off with the three whats, which you don't want to miss. Thank you all for listening. And now, cue the intro. Okay, so into the introduction. Hailing from Jersey Shore, New Jersey, our guests attended Fort Valley State University, DeVry University, which I also attended, and Keller Graduate School of Management. He attained a BS in accounting, among other academic honors, which I'm sure we will get into. He's the founder of the real estate appraisal company, Investor Comps, and his first book, Arise, will be on the market here pretty soon. His main passions are faith, family, Ironman races, which we will surely get into, playing golf, and real estate. Our guest has become the go-to valuation specialist for people who want to achieve more in their real estate investing business. Of course, we're going to talk about real estate here. He's not from Indiana, New York, or Chicago, but I present the Mark MJ Jackson. I hope you get those references. I'm sure you do.
There, I do. Yeah, the MJ followed me, man, in a number of different ways. Tony, thank you so very much. It is a joy to have the opportunity to care and share in this. I love the name, the Living Numbers, and how you've been able to share that message with other individuals. Had the great pleasure of preparing for the show, listening to a number of podcasts ahead of time. You do a wonderful work, and I'm so very grateful for the opportunity to care and share with you and with the audience as well.
Wow. I need to just have you on all the time and just tell me about my great show. Okay. I mean, I know you all can't see this, and I'm just taking you behind the curtain a little bit. We are 40 minutes into us just talking already. We are just starting the interview, the show, and you all are in for a treat because MJ he's off the charts. So, first number, 4 things that is on his website that his company brings to the table. You know what those 4 things are off the top of your head? I have them written down.
It's your show. You run with it. I do a lot of stuff.
Okay, then we'll talk about real estate, obviously. Personal development, number 2. Business operations, and number 4, appraiser tips and tricks. So I pulled that for our first number because I want to jump right in to real estate because during our conversation, you talked about how real estate has afforded you all of the luxuries of life by putting in the work and putting your eggs in this basket. Yeah. So I like to start off with this question. Did you see yourself being in real estate as a kid? Like, were there ever inklings, or did you just want to grow up and be a baseball player like Reggie Jackson?
I know. The answer to that genuinely is no. There are signs. I would say that when we look back on life, and I've had this conversation with my wife, a couple of my neighbors, we thought we were handy at drawing, just kind of etching with pencil, stuff like that. And the one thing that we would draw the most were houses. I mean, I'm talking, this is fifth, sixth grade. And I mean, we would put hours into etching and not so much, I guess what we consider our own little idea of architectural renderings and stuff like that. And I never thought about that incident or those seeds being planted, essentially in the good soil of my mind, 4 decades before. But what really is the dynamic is realizing for myself just the unique advantage of coming to real estate as an appraiser as compared to a broker or maybe a wholesaler or a rehabber. The unique advantage that I've been able to garner as an appraiser and then being able to gift as a servant to all the other fields or aspects of real estate has been just so very, very unique. Because here's the thing, it doesn't make a difference what type of transaction that you're doing. Whether you're looking at a private placement memorandum and you're reviewing the prospectus for a out of the ground self-storage, or if you're looking at a multifamily project, it doesn't matter if you're doing a small multifamily or single family, and maybe the deal comes to you from probate because there's been a life-ending event for someone, or that it is a foreclosure, which is actually my favorite, most plentiful way to go about it. Pre-foreclosure, maybe you've got a motivated seller and that deal is coming to you subject to with the existing financing or any other means or ways that deals are identified. Heck, I've driven down the street and found a house with a tarp on the roof about to fall down and was thoroughly excited that I found this deal, mainly because of the location. And so, what's the lead source for that other than just driving? Okay. But here it is, Tony. The gift of being an appraiser and having that background has allowed me and helped others always determine what we refer to as taking a valuation first approach. It is ascertaining and understanding using really good data through investor comps to determine what is the absolute best acquisition point. How much should you pay for that piece of real estate? How much should you invest if you're a private lender, or maybe you're a practice professional, or maybe a high W-2 earner, and you've got capital in a family limited partnership, or maybe in a self-directed IRA. And yes, you want to go put those little soldiers to work. You want to put that money out there to earn some interest return, get back your principal, and have a gain. You absolutely positively have to know what or how much capital is your maximum that you would deploy. But simultaneously, you want to be able, through looking at good data, doing market analysis, determine what is the reward, where's going to be the margin of gain, the after repair value on that asset, that particular project, what is going to be the cap rate after the capital improvements, based on the perspectives and what the operator says there's going to be the rental increases and other income streams coming in for that project. That is, it is essential, and it doesn't go away. The moment that you allow someone to say, even if it's someone like and trust, that's a friend that's referring the project to you, great that you've got that referral, but you still have to be in a position that you step back and allow yourself with the right community, like what we have in the VIP Plus community investor comps, other like-minded individuals that are taking the same approach to protect yourself before you ever deploy your capital. You know that you're going to make a profit as you invest. So those are the dynamics when it comes to taking a valuation first approach, what the appraising background has given me that I've been able to bless, not just when we started out as a domestic company, but also the clients that we serve internationally. I mean, I don't circle the globe, but we're getting there. We're getting there. I mean, we go from Europe to Scotland to Israel to, we've got folks that we worked with that are from South Africa, from the African continent, Canada. I don't have anyone in South America. I have folks that are from South America, but aren't presently there. We do have clients that are in Asia, and we have clients that are in Australia. And we didn't start out that way, but that's what we've been able to develop and grow to, providing service, real good information, so that to the greatest majority, these clients have been successful doing real estate virtually, obviously virtually here in the US, from a distance with good success.
Mm. So as you mentioned, all of these different places that you make these deals in and from. So the first thing I thought of is, how is it different doing real estate here in the US as opposed to Canada or Ireland or Israel? Like, how are the
Yeah,
deals different? Are there different laws? Are there different structures? Like, how does
yeah.
that work?
Yeah, you'll love it. So let me use this Australia as an example, because I've been there I've gone down a few times to visit with clients, had the opportunity to speak and stuff like that. And the means and ways in which that nation, which only has like 33 million people, the demand and cost for housing is extraordinary. And not that they don't invest, they do invest, but their cap rates, I mean, they might buy at a 2 cap rate with the hope that maybe it'll go to a 1 in X number of years, and their return investment in some cases either break even, if not less than break even. They're having to put money into the deal month over month or year over year just to keep it going while they wait for the value of that property to grow up. So as we're teaching it and engaging, it's helping those clients understand that there is not that they're not foreign to the idea that there's another way to invest that has acquisition cap rates at 16, and all you got to do is get back down to 10 or 12, and you've had good success, and you don't have to deploy millions of dollars to do it on a single asset. You can take the $1 million that you would use on one duplex or one single family residence in Sydney or in Melbourne, and you can do 10 assets in the Southeast and Atlanta. You have to set up the right structure. So we help them with CPA, entity creation, having the right bank account, stuff like that. But overwhelmingly, it's not so much, again, and I'm framing up your question, it's not so much we're teaching them how to do deals in Australia. We're showing them what can be done if you deploy your capital in the US, in the market areas, in the assets that we have available that we're able to find, because the laws, both governmentally and real estate title and things like that, are different when it comes to foreclosure, even how the banks work in the US versus the banks in Australia, even retirement accounts, US versus Australia. So it's being able to understand. I go back to Stephen Covey's book and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Number 5 is seek to understand, then be understood. So it's engaging in that market area, listening, doing the reading, and then being able to create a framework that helps enhance my circle of concern and circle of influence with them in terms of deploying their capital differently. And that applies the same way whether I've had to go and teach and share in Scotland. It applies differently for the clients when I've been in Turin, in Milan, and in Rome, in Italy, where the valuation components are different. Most of the valuation principles in the U.S. has to do with location, and then the amenities around the property, and then you get into the actual physical structure, curb appeal, year built, effective age, actual age, those things that all go into valuation. Where in Milan, everything. So some of the basis of real estate there is how close are you to the metro, right? If your building is closer to the metro, so you can get around transportation without a car, the better. However, if you're in a building that's 3 blocks from the metro and some famous person, artist, whatever, lived in that building, then that building has more value on the valuation side than the one that's closer to the metro. I'm telling you this, it's amazing the difference in how valuation is established. You could take that same building that the person lived in that was famous, and that's an older building. Let's say it was retrofitted. And so because of the way the staircase is inside, they were actually able to install an infrastructure to put in a lift, an elevator. Okay. So you don't have to just go up the stairs. And then maybe they were able to, they do mainly ductless air conditioning. So that's a different dynamic. But let's just say, all right, so that building is there and it got retrofitted with the famous person that lived in it. All right. That building will still be worth more than, let's say, the same block, a more famous person lived in that building, but it wasn't retrofitted. Okay. So it doesn't have the capacity or even the room to put a lift inside of it. So that building, yes, two famous people, so forth, but they live there. Let's switch it up. Another neighborhood in the district in Milan, and you have one building that's new and modern and close to the metro. Okay. And then you have another building 2 or 3 blocks away. Some descendant of Da Vinci lived in that building. Okay.
Uh-oh.
So, all right. The dynamic in there is that in that case, the units on the lower floors have more value than the units on the higher floors. What is in the U.S.? Higher floor always has more value. Always, always, always. Retrofit or not retrofit. But in a lot of the buildings, we don't have the history. So many of them have elevators. So, the penthouse, upper floors, they're more easily accessed. So they have higher value. Where in Milan, the lower floors have greater value. So it's teaching all these wonderful principles. Having been so fortunate to go to these different market areas from Asia, I mean, it's been more than I could have ever dreamed of or hoped for. And it all started with buying my first home, being at the closing table, seeing this 20-page legal document, having no idea what it was, no idea, none, and taking the accounting background, the love for gadgets, digital camera, and having an understanding of how software and database management work is at the closing table, turned to my wife and I said, sweetheart, I don't know. I have no idea what this is, but I could do it. And yet in that divine intervention moment, you ask the realtor and he says, this is the appraisal. This is what the bank uses to establish a value for you to be able to get your mortgage on the home that you're acquiring. Now, I paid for the appraisal. I just didn't know what the heck it was. But that moment is the seed of everything else that has transpired literally over the last almost 30 years now. It's been, again, more than I could have ever dreamed of.
So when you have this moment, because anybody who's bought a home, or even if you've signed an apartment lease, and you see all of these words, you see a whole bunch of stuff you don't understand.
Yeah.
I've been there myself. We just bought our home 3 years ago. It was during 2020 when all the stuff went crazy.
Exactly.
How did you go from, I think I can do this, I know I can do this.
Right.
What was the step that you did next? Because I framed that question because a lot of people are talking about real estate this, real estate that. You should get into real estate, homes, and all that kind of stuff. So for you, what was the next step? Like you signed it, and then the next day you woke up, and what did you do?
I'm a slow learner, man. I'm telling you, because literally the same thing happened when I had that moment at the closing table buying my first home back then. It was 3 years before I actually went to appraisal school.
Okay.
Similar to when I went to college and was working in hospitality, which means I was a manager at Church's Chicken. It took.
You got a great story there.
It took getting robbed at gunpoint 3 times, living in the New Orleans market, to realize that I had more value, that my wife and young children at the time deserved better than me being in jeopardy. But when it's all that and you believe that there's some safety and security, it's just the
Hard to
violent
leave.
nature. That just came along with the job. That you weren't the only one that was getting robbed. Your other fellow managers were getting robbed as well. It's like, okay, that was the norm. And although I had transitioned out of that, going back to school, was now in a situation working in transportation management, earning a really good living, lots of benefits, stuff like that, able to provide differently, certainly out of harm's way. And yet, I was still stuck in the concept of safety and security of the job. But that appraisal thing stayed in the back of my mind. And it wasn't until, again, life event, in the summer of, I think it was 1997, UPS went on strike, and I was taken from my cushy indoor expense accounting work and sent out on the dock to go load packages on vans and teach how to read a map to go deliver packages. And with the promise, as soon as UPS strike is over, we'll be done. We'll be back.
It'll be good.
It never happened. It never happened. For the benefit of the organization, we grew substantially, and those vendors that definitely needed package pickup delivery, they said, okay, we're gonna spread our business out. These guys were there for us when we had nothing, and so for the next year and a half, that was the role, and it wasn't what I thought or believed that I could sustain as a role in my life. And I finally said, all right, Christmas 1998, it's time for me to pursue something I could do. And here's a real thing, that I get to determine what my value is. Um, on the heels of before making the decision, annual review time came and the 4% increase. Regardless of the concepts of what we went through in the subjective and objective conversation of what you added to the organization, always wanted to give more, be willing to teach others, and not no shade for fashion saying the perfect employee. I faults and stuff like that as well, but you're giving your absolute best, but you're just not. I wasn't in a situation where I could garner what I believe to be my full value. I mean, I wanted a 10% increase, but it just wasn't possible. So that was the impetus to say, I want to be able to make the cash register ring. There's risk in that. You lose the benefits. But I was willing, with eyes wide open, what that meant. And fortunately, I had a good life partner that was willing to support that endeavor as well. It wasn't easy. I mean, you get away from, again, the safety and security, but it's been so very, very worth taking that walk of faith. I mean, I had a prayer. I'll end with this, Tony. I mean, when I was leaving corporate, I did all the math. I set up a budget, and I had a daily prayer. I mean, I was like the Sadducees of prayer. I was saying the same prayer every single day. I'm like, Lord, I know I'm not supposed to repeat that. You've heard it, but it's more for me to be accountable than you to be accountable to me. Okay? And my prayer was, Lord, I need 2 appraisals every day. I will pick up the phone. I will go knock on doors. I will do whatever it takes, but I need 2 appraisals every day. So again, it was my own, as I'm describing it now, way to go back and say, I'm leaving this job and I'm gonna go try this appraisal. There was no try in it. It was, I'm gonna do. But it walking hand in hand with the love, grace, and support of our Creator and being accountable. I hope I described that the right way.
Oh, that was perfect. That was perfect. You're a great storyteller, MJ.
I got a few.
As you were talking about working at UPS, I just got flashbacks because I worked for UPS for a time. I got back from China from teaching English over there, and a buddy of mine at our church, he was like, well, I know you kind of figuring out what you're going to do. I was a substitute teacher at the time too, because I was working on my certification. So much like you, it was like this in-between period.
Yeah.
They took you out of your office and the job that you liked and wanted. And now you got to do this extra stuff that you really don't want to do.
Yeah.
But man, loading those trucks, it is, and I worked the night shift. So I would go in at I think I was going at 8:00.
Yeah.
Loading these dang on trucks at UPS. Oh my goodness. I hated it. I just always thought y'all expect one person to do this and be good at it and do it efficiently. I'm like, this is awful. I hated it, but
it is.
I was grateful.
Manual.
I was grateful.
And
then, but after that, and then I'll let you go. I would leave that job at maybe 6, get home, shower, eat, and then I would be off to the school to do a sub job. And and after that, I was I was still doing my certification. So I had these modules online that I had to do.
Yeah.
That was
But here's the beautiful part, especially
time.
for anyone in the audience. If you do what you have to do until you can do what you want to do, and as long as you keep it in that framework, we all have a journey to go through, whether it is pursuing something and having to be an apprentice or whatever the case may be, and you're just working towards to the point where you can be on your own and bring in all the revenue, or not have to be a volunteer, whatever the case may be. you did, Tony, what you had to do to get to what you wanted to do for and through yourself and your family. And that is it. The more that people in any walk of life are willing to embrace that dynamic. Now, get to what you want to do as quickly as you can, with expertise and adding value to others, being a servant to others. That concept and it's just so very, very true. The more that you pursue helping others achieve what it is that they want to accomplish, and you do that with an open heart and open hands, there's no telling what you can accomplish for yourself when your focus is outward first as compared to your own selfish or individual desires. However you want to frame it when everything's about you first. Give yourself away, and that's when truly the windows of heaven will open for you.
Man, you preaching right now. Okay. We're going to preach on over to our next number because you're kind of jumping right into it. And so it is your book that is going to be coming out soon. 5 simple daily practices that will enrich and improve your life. Yeah. And I think it was not just your life, but, personally, professionally, there was like a whole thing. But, I was trying to shorten it.
Yeah.
And when I see people, and this is a parallel that happens with a lot of people who are successful, is they have to grind, and then they figure it out, and then they want to give back. And sometimes that giving back looks like doing a totally different job or going into a different scope. So this kind of is what this looks like, is extending your reach. Yeah. And so you're writing this book, you have your speaking engagements that you do, and you're extending your reach to those who you want to help, whether it's people who are in the industry, outside of the industry, people at your age looking to do something different, people who are younger. When did you start to have that moment where you go, okay, I want to give back. I want to extend my reach and help other people from the experiences that I've had?
Yeah. It's just that, 25-year overnight success story dynamic. I had just finished my second full Ironman, and I had some time to sit back and meditate and reflect on what made it possible. And there was years of work being engaged in what for me, fortunately, a passion, being engaged in real estate, building an organization, having team members that basically spread over 12 time zones, not just in the U.S., but, from Ukraine all the way to Manila. And having those individuals, those different lives weave together to provide service and offer value to others. And in doing that, again, you get to a point where your needs are met, and then your needs are met in abundance. And to some degree, you're getting focused on more of legacy and impact that you want to have. And for myself, I'm married to just a wonderful lady, and I want to have as many years with her as I possibly can. And one of the things we talk about was that we want to celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary. And, this goes back to failure. I mean, I was married. I lived in New Orleans. I lost that family, but was fortunate to remarry where my wife actually had 2 children, and they were younger than my own children. So now I got a chance to go to elementary schools and be involved with principals and know all the administrators, counselors, stuff like that. For our daughter actually to go off to college at 15 years old, not like dual enrollment, but I mean like literally go off to college at 15. And then our younger son, nurturing and being part of his life, being in the First Tee program, being in scouting, earning his Eagle Scout, being battalion commander of his ROTC company, and then earning commission and appointment to West Point, the United States Military Academy, discovering that I really am a good dad, a good father, and nurturing beautiful young lives. And so when I think about those dynamics, I got to the point where I wanted to do something that would allow me to lean up my body, get in better shape, because I'd always been an athlete, but wasn't doing anything intentional. I was very
Right.
fortunate to discover swimming. My dad taught me how to swim when I was very, very young. And so that was one thing. I love riding a bike. I was helping a buddy move, Ron Smith, years ago, like 1997, 1998. And he had a bike in his basement. It was in the frame, didn't have the wheels on it. I was like, dude, you're not paying us to move. Give me the bike. It's mine. You're not using it anyway. So I took it with me. I took it to the bike shop, had it put together, and like $1,000 later, I was like, what the heck happened? It was a bicycle. And so, of course, I've got to go ride this thing. I've got the helmet, the clip-on shoes, the all other accoutrements that go with having a really good race bike, but just didn't know what I didn't know. And so loved riding. And I realized those were things I could do, pretty much in perpetuity. So, discovered vicariously somehow the concept of triathlon, which I'd never done before, joined a team, and that team was scheduled to do an Ironman. Well, the race that we're going to do was a full Ironman. So that was what I did first. I went out, did the whole thing, 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile bike ride, and a marathon. You only get 17 hours to do it. And the mental fortitude, it was 5.5 months of training, which I still had to run my company, still had to have a family life, engaging with the children, and then be able to train and do this race and then have the mental fortitude to get through. Tony, that first race in Boulder, Colorado in 2017, I finished with less than 12 minutes left.
Wow.
Okay?
That's cutting it close.
It's cutting it close, but you couldn't tell me I wasn't going to finish. Learning how to discover the nutrition, discover what my physical body was capable of doing, having the right equipment, having friends and associates around me and certainly family there that would support, and the countless people that stayed there, all the way into the evening for us that were coming in as final finishers. But overwhelming, that turned into this arise to live, because there's 5 simple things that got me through this development of transitioning everything I'd done in real estate, but even operating my business to be able to finish these Ironman races, which I'm getting ready to do my 10th one now. But awakening with gratitude every day. There's an old saying, and I've used this all the time. If you are clothed in your right mind and have a measure of strength, if you wake up and you know who you are and you can get up, and whatever that looks like for you, you can get up and go on your way, man, you got everything to be grateful for just in those 2 little things before the day even unwraps for itself. So I always say awaken with gratitude, then realize anything is possible. You just have to have some intentional focus. You need to strengthen your mind and your body, and then go execute with excellence on the desires of your heart. So it's 5 simple practices: awaken, realize, intentional focus, strengthen your mind, your body, and then you can go accomplish and do whatever is within your heart's desire. So I've begun sharing that message, and it has been a gift to so many people. And the thing, as I've seasoned in life, I value everyone that's touched by it. But what really gets me is the 20-somethings and the teeners and the 30-somethings MJ, if it's one part, 2 parts of it, if it's all of it, the way it touches them is life-giving in ways that I cannot describe. I'm grateful for everyone that touches, but when having that impact and that's meaningful and tangible with young lives, because that is the future. That's the thing that I had no idea, never dreamed of would be a part of it. I thought I'd be talking to my own peer group. And yet, here are these young people that are just enamored and taken and run with. I get messages, I get comments on the Facebook fan page. And I haven't even finished and launched a book yet, but planting the seeds of your first 5 in the morning, taking 5 minutes to practice awakening with gratitude, realize anything is possible, what you're going to focus on, how are you going to strengthen your body by what you take in. How are you going to strengthen your mind by the reading and the intentional work that you're going to do so that you can go execute with excellence. That's the thing. I would say that is by far the greatest gift that has come out of and will continue to be personified as we take the time, care, and energy to get the message of Arise to Live out to the masses, Tony. It is a joy. It is absolutely a joy.
I can tell anybody who's not watching, you can just see it all over his face. Like he lives for this stuff. And I mean, what better place than to go to our next number because it all kind of ties in together. And I think we all can kind of see that as we live our lives. Like one thing kind of runs into the next.
Yeah.
It's $61 is the average price in America. And I think this study was done in 2020 for a round of golf, which I know you are very fond of. So I like to, because we're more than just our jobs. And you've demonstrated that in a great way with just what you've talked about. So this is kind of like a catch-all, right? It's faith, family, and hobbies.
Yeah.
Because I know golf is one of your hobbies, and you've talked about your faith and your family so much. How do you balance it all? You know, because you do a lot of stuff, and we talked about a bunch of it before we actually started.
Yeah.
And I mean, you got a lot going on. You do a lot of traveling. So how do you figure it out as a husband, as dad, as an entrepreneur, and all of these different things?
Yeah, golf teaches so many principles. It's a phenomenal game, but at the core, there's the integrity. It's that
Mm-hmm.
sport where you have to call literally penalties on yourself, or the other unique dynamics. You have to play the ball as it lies. You don't get to say, okay, well, it's in a hard spot, so I'm just going to play over here. It requires you to engage in an endeavor that drives you to reach deep inside of yourself, regardless of the circumstance. And I tell people all the time, real estate is not for the faint of heart. It's something that it will, if you don't pay attention to it, it will come back and bite you. So you have to be mindful of what's taking place in the market area around those transactions. So there's different lessons that I've been able to take from the game of golf, from the patience, the trustworthiness, the perseverance that the game
Mm-hmm.
and the principles of the game pour into you, and apply that to any number of different aspects of life. Uh, it, it, Golf helped me get through Ironman. I was riding one day on a training ride, climbing uphill, and man, it sucked. It was hard. I got to the point and I'm like, I'm done. Look, I'm turning around, I'm going to ride back down this hill. And
Mm.
literally, the thought that came to mind was anybody can quit. And I refuse to be anybody. And that came from just some of the different things where you realize that in the game of golf, you got to play the ball as it lies. You still got to get it to the hole, and
Yeah.
you can't just pick up and quit. And that very day on the bike, all I did was turn around and kept on climbing up the hill. And it was so very, very rewarding just individually. And everybody, yourself, your listeners, when there's been that time when it's been challenging and hard. And I mean, it doesn't make a difference if you're doing a Sudoku puzzle or if you're actually engaged in negotiating with a vendor or a supplier, or if you're
Yeah.
in a call and you want to get your point across. You can't be in a position where you're willing to give up. Well, certainly, if nothing else, if you fail, learn from that experience, but be willing to fail in order to get there. One of the things we talk about in real estate is fail fast. Get through the no's so you can get to the yes on all those 50, 60, 100 deals you're going through to get the one that you're actually going to get in a contract and it's going to pay dividends. So this game of golf has been a blessing in so many different ways, and in particular, the attributes of the game and what it teaches you. If you're willing to go through and be a part of the true elements of it. Now, I'm very fortunate that my wife enjoys playing the game. I have children that enjoy playing the game. I've introduced it to my grandchildren, so it will continue to be a very jointed part of my life. But now, for those that are familiar with the game, and for those that understand and can appreciate doing business transactions, I bought like some of early on. I think I had done 2 or 3 real estate deals in one day. I was playing golf and I bought 3 properties while playing that round of golf. And since then, the relationships and even the tremendous nonprofit project that we're doing to support First Tee, which launches June 10th of 2024, has come from so many different relationships to go out and do good and expose the game and its principles, which have been such a life-giving blessing to me through youth development programs that are out there in First Tee program across the country. So that is a phenomenal question. Thank you for asking that, because golf and its principles, like other sports as well, but in my life, the introduction to the game, and even along with I had pictures and images of my dad. I've actually recently posted these back on Father's Day this year, of my father in the late 40s, dressed to the nines, had his Panama hat on, was out on the golf course. He and I never had the opportunity to play the game together, but I still have the actual original images. Okay. And then, of course, kept converting them to digital so I could share. But yeah, in a lot of ways, I'm able to honor the legacy of my dad by somehow getting introduced to the game. No different than the swimming. I mean, our dads are our heroes, right? And so it's another way that I realize that here is I'm representing, honoring my dad by enjoying the game that that he enjoyed, and that in my mind, I guess we've had the opportunity to play together, but it's having such a significant impact not only on me, but so many people that I've been able to either engage with on the golf course, meet as a result of just talking about the game in the airport or whatever the case may be, and certainly those that I've had the good fortune to engage with internationally as part of the game of golf as well.
So you've mentioned this a bunch of times, either directly or indirectly.
Yeah.
But your faith is a big part of how you live, what you do, how you conduct your business, how you conduct yourself as a family man. How, I guess I'm asking for your come to Jesus moment, but when,
Woo.
because I think that it's a,
Wow.
and as a person of faith myself, there's like a turning point always. You may accept Jesus, but to then start to live for Jesus may come at a different time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I guess, when did you start to see that faith working in all these other areas, or when did you start to allow it or push it into these other areas? If you know what I'm trying to ask.
Sure. And it, and I'll tell you that journey is ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
Relationship continues to grow and evolve. I give a wealth of credit to my parents, both my mother and my father. There's just simple principles. I mean, growing up in New Jersey, our house burned down. My dad, his father was a Baptist pastor. My mother's father was a Methodist pastor. And so from my dad, as we were literally rebuilding a house himself, he learned carpentry from his dad. What was Christ? Christ was a carpenter.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And he taught little lessons, did little things about measure twice, cut once, and why that's so important. And the care that goes into the craft of carpentry, and how you honor yourself and literally the family by restoring our home in such a fashion that we one day eventually can live back in it in safety and security. My mom those simple phrases. You didn't have much. There was a time in the 70s when there was a meat boycott because meat prices had gone really, really high. But my dad was a chef and my mother was a wonderful Southern cook. So we ate any different varieties of dishes. And so at one point they said, well, I want to thank you, children. I had 3 younger sisters, and thank you for being, so patient and gracious during the meat boycott. And we were like, what meat boycott? We were like,
Wait a second. Your parents, they were thanking you at?
yes, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I guess there were other
Wow.
kids. They experienced in the public other kids that were maybe being more boisterous or whatever, and we just didn't even know. And in that, my mom was saying, you may not be rich as it compared to what you see on TV and the media and other circumstances, but as long as you have your faith, as long as you have your belief, then you are rich. And so it gave a different framing to what abundance really was. And of course, in that time frame, that's what you held on to. So I really believe it's you come to it in different times in your life, and then it just expands and grows as long as you allow those principles to guide you. But it's really interesting when you get down to, and this is completely different. But I told you I lost my family initially, and it was absolutely my fault. The energy that I was deploying outside of my home, if I put those same energy inside the home and in the marriage, I, for all intents and purposes, be in that relationship. But it's silly. I mean, things trigger different ways. A person was telling a joke, and they said, "Man, in terms of gender and couples and relationships, guys, we're just stupid." Um, it- there's this gentleman that had just closed this phenomenal deal, and he was getting accolades from all the other guys, pound pound. He goes downstairs and he gets ready to go out to dinner, and a young lady comes, pulls up absolutely positively gorgeous in a convertible, and she says, "I know you just closed that deal. Come on, go with me. I promise you, no one will find out." And he actually
Uh-oh.
considers it. And then the story goes on, and the guy, he says, same thing, cross the street. This wife, she works diligently and fights her way to get her new sales proposal passed through, and it is successful. It is beyond measure, something she never thought that would get through all the guys, whatever the case may be. Get ready to go meet up with some of the ladies and celebrate, stuff like that. Pulls up this guy, Chippendale, got the collar on, everything, tells her, "Hey, come on, go with me. I know you've had a great day. I promise you no one would find out." And very simply, the way the story ends, it says, she immediately, but immediately says, "Yes, but I would know." And so you relate that to your faith walk and all the things that we're doing. The Creator is not ignorant. The Creator is there watching on your shoulder as you and I have this opportunity to care and share and to pour into the listeners. I want to say that even though that's a story and it should be a principal thing, that touched my awareness at a point in time in my life, probably in early mid 30s, and it takes guys longer to mature. I admit it. Okay, that one really solidified and drove me in a unique and very different thinking from that time going forward. And it just it took that analogy, that story, to solidify it. Had a faith walk, knew some principle, but just wasn't always living into them. And so,
Right.
as much as humanly possible, and full cognitive awareness, we're still all going to fail. But I think that there is a certain level of scale that has happened as a result of taking ownership of all of my own actions, words, deeds, endeavors that has been different from that time going forward, tied to and really exemplified, not exemplified, but magnified the faith walk with intention. I think that's where that comes
Woo.
from.
That's good.
Thanks
Okay.
for this opportunity to
Man.
share. It's it. I got a lot of words. My mom was a talker too, so I get it honest. I get it
Okay.
honest. I really do.
Same. I've had to literally train myself to not talk so much. I was like, okay, yep, time to. In my mind, it's almost like, when you go and you give an acceptance speech, and
Hmm.
they've got the light that's going off when it's time for you to get off the stage. It's almost like I have one of those now in
Yeah.
my own head. No matter the situation, I know how
Yeah.
long I should talk.
Hmm.
And so at this point, it's time for me to talk about our three whats and get to our last piece.
Okay.
Okay, three whats. You can go as long or as short as you want. And I know those are dangerous words. Oh, that's funny. I got to keep all of that in.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What number one? What's an opinion that you have that will be considered unpopular?
I, I, this is a principle that I just believe in, and
Mm-hmm.
I believe that we should only eat living food. And what I mean by that is pure and simple. If you can identify it, let it go in. If it's something processed or in a form where you can't tell that that was originally corn, and or
Mm,
that it was an apricot, or that even with beef. I mean, unless you're grinding a steak yourself, and you're buying hamburger, it's been processed to some form or fashion. Uh, I genuinely believe that as long as you can see and know that that was living food, then go ahead and digest it. Okay. I know the impact that it's had on my physical body, my mental acuity, what it's meant for my wife and our children and our family structure, the ability
mm.
to not have to moderate. We don't go on a diet. We have a diet. Our
There we
diet is
go.
determined by what we choose to digest, and that's it. Again, uh, just eat living food. And people are like, well, man, that takes out hot dogs. And I'm like, yeah, so what? You want to live?
No Doritos.
You want to live? You want to live? All things in moderation. I love me a good ice cream cone. Okay,
Yes, sir.
I absolutely positively do. And so, will I have ice cream? Absolutely. Once a month? Probably not. You know, it may be months. Okay. When I have it, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not going to overindulge. I'm going to enjoy it. Here's a good one. Growing
Uh-oh.
up on the East Coast, one of my absolute favorite things, and I post about it all the time. Don't let me see a White Castle hamburger spot. Okay.
White Castle.
I love me
Man.
some White Castle. However, I will have one cheese slider. I was just in Detroit last month, June. I was in Detroit June, and I have my asset manager with me. And I told him, I said, "Look, man, we're going to Detroit. We're going to pass by. We're going to pass by White Castle. We're going to have to stop." I went in. I got four sliders, and I think I got a couple cups of water. And so, yes, I enjoyed the sliders. Now, when's the next time I'm going? The only time I've had one before that was we were in Orlando just in the Christmas holidays of 2022, and lo and behold, they've got White Castle down there now. So sure enough, yeah, I mean, I had White Castle then. So
Oh man.
I practice eating living food, and that's all. I mean, no sodas, none of that. I do enjoy red wine, and there's specific attributes that go along with red wine, but I also pay attention to who is who's the vineyard and how they produce. Okay, and so that's important to me. But eating living food is not hard. It is extremely simple, and your body and your mind will function differently when you allow yourself to be in that space. I get all the time. I tell people, I'm a grandfather, and they're like, "No way. No way. And I
Yeah.
told my grandfather, and I got teenage grandchildren. They're like, oh my God, you have got to be lying. And I believe not only is because I chose my parents well, so I got some good DNA, but I definitely attribute it to eating living food, period, point blank, the end.
All right. I would ask more questions, but it's time for our second what?
Okay.
If you weren't doing, real estate, I mean, you do so much. Okay. But if you were out of real estate, no more real estate, no more buying and selling homes, no more valuations, no more. Okay. What would you be doing? What would your, I guess, job be? I'll put that in air quotes.
Yeah. I wish I'd learned this earlier in life, and it may even cover question number 3. Um, and I'll give credit to Gary Vaynerchuk for this one in his very first book called Crush It. What are you passionate about? And when I was in college, I played drums. I learned to play drums when I was in 4th grade and played it in the band in high school. But when I got to college, I didn't have any money to eat. So the band was working out. So I joined the band so I could eat in the dining hall for free. But what happened was the next summer, the leader of our band director said, hey, MJ, there is a band camp that's being taught over in Lamar County at Barnesville High School. We're going to go over there and work with them. We're going to teach them how to march. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Learn how to march is like nothing. And it's like, no, we're going to go over there. They're going to pay for us. They're going to pay for our housing, room and board. They're going to feed us, and they're going to pay us for being there. And I was like,
I'm in.
You have got to be kidding me. And I get to go with you for a week to teach these kids how to march. I've never even taught it before, but I know I can, right? And then maybe do a little drum stuff and stuff. And I'll get paid just because I like playing drums in the band. So take that and personify it into anything, okay? So if I had known that back then, other than one other thing, I think one of the biggest things, if in fact it isn't taught to you, well, I'll hold that because I know that's question number 3. So I'm just going to stop.
What would you be doing?
I'm going to mess it up. But my goodness, engage in that thing that you are absolutely passionate about, that when you wake up in the morning, you're excited to go do. I love and am so very fortunate to have had the walk becoming a real estate appraiser and going after it with a complete faith walk, because it wasn't anything I was even introduced to before while working in hospitality or at RPS and being engaged in my accounting degree, doing that work in operations accounting. Furthest thing, but I had a passion for it. I had that divine intervention. I mean, literally, the evidence of it was before I could finish taking my test and go to the state of Georgia and get my license, I already had my first appraisal order and the money order in my hand to pay for it. So literally, that is the evidence that, yes, I was going for it and doing the right thing with my life. So that it do what you are passionate about, and the internet is just a phenomenal way. I mean, I remember, to close this out, back in when we were first launching Investor Comps and Skype was really big, and it began the revolution of working remotely. And there was a gentleman in the Wisconsin area. He taught guitar lessons, family, 6 children. He taught guitar lessons over Skype video, and that is how he made his living. Okay. I have a perfect example. My own uncle, who was in the Philadelphia area, he was a milliner. This man with these amazingly big hands, he's 6'3", robust, Owsley Jackson. He was in Ebony magazine. His work was he designed women's hats. He designed and sold women's hats, had his own shop, and his hats were displayed in the J.C. Penney in downtown Philadelphia. That he did what he was passionate about. I should have learned from my dad being a chef. I mean, he learned cooking in the Merchant Marines during World War II, and then kept on reading books on James Beard and other things, and wound up being a masterful chef and was extremely passionate about that work that he did. So whatever it is that you genuinely have a passion for, and you develop your expertise and go after it, you won't work a day in your life. And that's what I feel very fortunate to experience now as we deliver on the teaching and methods of investor comps, have built a real estate portfolio, and then through our real estate development company, America's Discount Home Deals, offer investments for others to be able to deploy capital and earn good returns, operating in 9 states and the territory of Puerto Rico. It is a joy to engage in this life's work that not only touches other people, but then gives back other benefits as well, individually, personally, and collaboratively.
Okay, MJ already answered the third question. Kids, follow your passion.
Well,
Because y'all know what number 3.
there's
What
one
advice
other.
would you give to someone in high school?
Yeah. One. Can I do 3?
Sure.
Okay. 1, learn early in life to say you're wrong. Don't be the smartest one in the room. If you don't have so much pride, there is a release and great liberty that you will experience by being willing very early in life and throughout your life to be gracious, humble, vulnerable, and transparent. Be willing to say you're wrong when it is obvious. Don't make an excuse or I thought I said when you know that's exactly what you did. Be willing to say there is a great release in being able to do that. Yes, follow your passion. Do what is absolutely positively life-giving for you. And then in all things, be willing to add value to others. Give yourself away. The more that you can be in service to others as you walk through the early part of your life, there's tremendous benefits that outward focus, that being in service to others will actually benefit you in very unique and distinct ways and in ways that you otherwise would not give. And I mean, I have stories that I can share and how that giving yourself away has manifested itself in so many great successes, whether it be just personal and family life, being able to touch others. Well, I'll tell one little story. I was in a post office.
All right, here we go.
And I was in a post office one day, and I was doing some mailing and putting together a box, and then there was some material that was left by a lady, and rather than just throwing it away, whatever the case may be, which it could have been flighty, whatever, just move on. I went ahead, utilized the information I had, and I was able to make contact with the lady. I beg your pardon. I wish I could remember her name at the moment. It's been a couple of decades, but turns out it was a woman. It probably had to do with some Social Security identification information that she had left behind in the post office. I gave it to her, and she was so very, very grateful that over time we wound up literally having a vicarious extra grandmother. She would write and love on myself, my wife, my children. We were able to break bread a number of different times together and just be with and through and for her through the balance of her life in ways that, as she described, she didn't have a relationship with her own children because they were at a distance, so on and so forth. Not that they weren't loving, it's just that they no longer lived right around the corner or whatever the case. And
right.
It's Miss Campbell. Her name was Miss Campbell, came to me. So that was just being a good steward and be willing to do something extra for someone else that had nothing to do with me. But the reward that came from it was the life-giving reward that came from it over probably the better part of 7-8 years as we were able to experience her life was so very, very special. And of course, I remember to this day as well.
Hey, shout out to Miss Campbell. Okay,
Yes.
last thing. Where can people find you, MJ?
Yes.
Also known as Mark Jackson, not the point guard from the Indiana Pacers, and not Michael Jordan from the Chicago Bulls.
Exactly. The easiest way is themarkjackson.com. Themarkjackson.com. Easy way to kind of see what we're doing, reaching out, scheduling a call, have an opportunity to engage, discover more about this life-giving resource of real estate and just how you can utilize it to gain your own freedom, to be in a posture where you're not just spinning the wheel. You can actually see down the road how you'll be able to utilize the gain from those resources, either to be first a blessing in your own household, but then also helping other family members, cousins, nieces, extended family, whatever the case may be, and certainly be in a posture where you can establish that plan B. How can I have passive income, recurring and ongoing, that allows me to be able to not have to necessarily be in the grind anymore? Whether you're a first-time real estate investor or, basically practice professional, high W-2 net worth, high W-2 income earner, you can literally be in a posture where you can see that, light at the end of the tunnel, where you don't have to go out and trade your hours for dollars anymore, but be in a position where that good work winds up paying you, as well as creating legacy, wealth building assets that are long-term, that certainly will, in a number of cases, I really look forward to talking about it, being a blessing for your children's children and certainly outliving you. That's what real estate can do when you take a valuation first approach and intentional about really having good success.
All right, MJ, thank you so much.
It's a joy.
This has been awesome, but I know time is a finite resource.
Yes,
so make sure you all go to the website, themarkjackson.com, correct?
Yes, themarkjackson.com. Yes.
Wow, Ramble Nation, that is one for the books. We couldn't have had MJ on and the other amazing guests without your support. So if you want to hear us count it up with another guest, be sure to share the show and follow us on the IG page at the Living Numbers Podcast, where I post stuff about myself as well as the show. I hope to see you all in the next